You made.
All right. Are we ready? Okay, no, here we go. Tony, welcome to Extra Shot.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alisha. I'm so excited. Let's do it.
I'm basically using this podcast as an opportunity to talk to my friends and have it recorded for posterity and the rest of the world to hear.
I think that's a reasonable goal and a reasonable reason to start a podcast.
Yeah.
People tend to like just casual banter amongst friends, so I think we should just give
Yeah.
them what they need.
And also, my friends are amazing. You are a case in point here.
Come on.
Former retired surgeon,
That is true. That is true.
Harvard graduate, and star a cappella singer.
I mean, as are you. I mean, we're royalty, in case anybody was
We
curious,
are.
royalty in the collegiate a cappella
Are we?
annals of history. Yeah.
I think we almost came runner up once for some regional
Yeah.
award, right?
But I will tell you, I don't know if have you been back to any reunions?
I've been back to one of the callbacks reunions a while ago when we still lived in the US, and I've been to all my Harvard reunions because I love them.
Okay.
So
I
Tony,
went
so
to,
Tony and I sang together
yeah,
in the Harvard callbacks premier co-ed a cappella group.
premiere.
Premiere. And when Pitch Perfect came out and people were like, is it really like that? I was like, it's so much more
Yeah.
insane and intense than that, if that's even possible to imagine.
Completely true. It was the best extracurricular I could have hoped for coming to college when I didn't know anything about acapella. And the first time I saw the callbacks or any acapella was when we had like our weekend where we visit to decide if we want to come to Harvard. And I saw them singing and I was like, what is, I was like asking people like, what is this? And I was like, I got to be a part of it. But like, I never really sang in choirs or
Mm.
anything. I was like a shower singer, and you know, they just hopped in yeah, you joined
The
the
same
first year
year as
too, right?
you,
Yeah, my first
my
year,
sophomore
your
year.
sophomore year.
Exactly.
So
So I
good.
never sang. Well, I sang when I was younger. And then I became afraid to sing in front of people and didn't think I was good enough. And so didn't sing for a long time. And then
Right.
I went to not far from where you currently live in the north of England,
Mhm.
which we'll get to. And we were out at the pub every night. And I was 19. So legally old enough to drink in the UK, but not in the US. So, you know, they had this shot called Goldschlager, which had little pieces of gold flake in it, which I thought was very classy.
I always
And
wonder about,
it's
safety with that, but
hey, you're a doctor. Should I not have drank that? Tasted like cinnamon. And
I
it gave me
mean,
liquid courage. I got up and sang
yeah.
karaoke and I got a lot of applause from a lot of very drunk English men. And then I went back to Harvard in the fall and I auditioned for an a cappella group.
It's funny. It only takes a little bit, one shot, one might say, um, of courage to change your whole trajectory. So I'm so glad that you got drunk in England and came back singing.
Me too, because we sang together,
Mhm.
and it's been incredible to just watch what you have done with your career and your life since that time. And now people can read about it in your book, which
Mhm.
is extraordinary. And we're going to talk about that too. But the first thing I want to do is talk to you about where you're living. Tell me where
Yes.
you're living right now, Tony.
So I am currently an expatriate of the United States. I live in Durham, in England, which is
North Carolina.
north, northeast England, closer to Scotland than it is to London. So I mean, the pace is very different from any American big city. But we came out here because my wife, I mean, we're both, dropouts of the medical community. I mean, I
Mm.
used to be a surgeon, then I quit. And my wife used to be a nurse practitioner, and she quit. And she always has loved Europe, always really has been an Anglophile, reads all the old English books and likes British TV and all that stuff. And it was kind of always her dream to get here, so we just had to figure out how. And we figured that through schooling was a good way to try. So Now she is a master's student in archaeology at the University of Durham.
So cool. Talk about
And
a what if year.
yeah, no, absolutely. She is in her total what if year right now, and she's loving it, man. Like, I'm just so happy to see how much she is enjoying life and enjoying this place. I mean, it's kind of like small townish, and so we have like our grocers who we know by name, and like this little shop that we know the owners, and we go out to dinner with them, and their kids like babysit our baby, like it's a whole.
Amazing.
I've never lived in a place like this, but I'm super grateful for it. It's been such a blast.
What are you finding the biggest differences between, this is a hilarious question, I say as I'm asking it, Los Angeles, California, and Durham, England, on the other hand? I mean, often put together in the same sentence.
Yeah, no, people wonder about that specifically, so I'm glad you brought it up. I think, they're just two different worlds, man. I mean, I'm kind of easygoing. I don't mind. I haven't really minded any place I've ever lived.
And there's been many of them.
There's been many. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I lived in Cambridge, then I lived in Worcester, which we don't talk about, and I lived in Atlanta and Detroit, and all these and ended up most recently in Los Angeles. And I had no problem with it while I was there, but my wife, when she moved there, because I lived there when we were still, before we got married, she hated like the idea of Los Angeles before she came. So Los Angeles didn't do her any favors. Like, it confirmed all the stuff that she disliked. But it's just hard. It's harder to just live and do normal stuff. Like, it's expensive. You can barely drive anywhere because traffic is worse than anywhere in the planet, and things are just not as accessible. And so coming here, in this town where we barely drive unless it's to drive out, sightseeing to the coast, or there's farmland like 5 minutes from us in any direction, and like, but mostly we're walking and eating locally, and all the locally grown foods and that sort of thing, like. And people are just so nice. Like, they've been so kind to us, just so neighborly in a way that we never experienced in LA.
Wow.
Like, you could live next to people for 10 years and not know who they were, but we had like our old neighbors like bringing us gifts for American Thanksgiving because they thought that we'd be homesick. And it was like really, really adorable. But that's just kind of that's the vibe, and it's it's wonderful.
And it's a beautiful town. I mean, you've lived in a lot of very diverse cities. Durham, as I recall, is not the most diverse, unless it's more diverse now than it used to be. Is that weird for you?
No, I think it is very white. And that's what I expected, kind of coming here. We have a little bit, like, not much diversity of race and culture due to the university being here, but a little bit, but I'm the only Black person for miles, and I know that. Okay. And there was a time in my life earlier on when that might have bothered me or made me feel weird, but I've kind of, I mean, I think I'm more secure in myself and my ability to create the kind of community and culture that I need wherever I go. And so I don't mind it. It'd be nice to see a little more melanin in these streets, but until then, I'll hold it down for us. If anybody wants to visit or move here,
please. Tony's begging.
I'll show you a good time, and you'll fall in love, and it'd be great.
It's a great town. I've been there before. That's where I was on my very first few trips to the UK way back in the early 2000s. And the accent, Tony, is not the easiest to understand. So Geordie Shore was like a big show for a while, which was like Jersey Shore, I guess, but Geordie Shore. I think that's what it was called.
I know it was called Geordie Shore. I think I saw it on Gogglebox one time.
And a lot of different words. So I wanted to give you a little quiz and see how well you were adapting to life in
Yeah,
the
I've been here
northeast of
about
England.
like 9 months, so I think let's try. Let's see where I'm at.
All right. So level 1, easy stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Um, you have a child with you
Ah,
in the UK.
mhm.
So when she needs a change, what do you call the thing that you're putting on her bottom?
Oh, it's called a nappy. Yeah, we don't call them diapers over here.
Do you
Yeah,
call it
that's
nappies at home? Because I always found that really weird.
oh, we just had because that's what it's one of the first words Pippa started saying. And
Nappy.
so she knows she's like new nappy when it's time to change. And I was like, oh, because that's what they teach her at nursery. So that's what we call them.
Also,
And if
it's
we
kind of
say,
great that she tells you that. That's like a
yeah,
self-cleaning oven, really.
it's hilarious. But she's but yeah, you can't ask for diapers at the grocery store. Like it's just you got to know the word. So
You have to know those. And
nappies.
what is the contraption in which you might roll her down the street in?
Good question. I believe there are several words
Ooh.
for this here.
Oh.
So we call it I mean, at home in the US, we call it a stroller.
Correct.
Here, we call it a buggy, and we also call it a pram.
Oh my God, Slay. Tony, you've gone full native.
Come on!
I'm very proud.
I
I'm
can't be
very proud.
stopped. Oh, this feels so good. All right.
All the lights are off. You've had a power outage, and so you need to grab a battery operated device that's going to help you see better.
Oh, yes. That would be a torch.
Okay. All right. We're moving on to the advanced level. You're too good at this.
I live here. Guys, I'm just saying, a few months in northern England, and you know,
You
you're
are.
native. It's
Okay.
great. Okay,
I would like to
level
know
2.
if you, okay. I had to look these up. I didn't know any of these. Have you been called any of the following? A gadgie, a radgie, or a Bobby Dazzler?
I will say no to all. I
Okay.
have never heard those words. Um, they sound great, but listen, I'll tell you, like, I think I've had it pretty easy with like people I've interacted with and their accents, but I've gone out with some real Northerners. Like I went
Yep.
out the other night with some guys and I couldn't understand for the life of me anything they were saying. And I was like, it wasn't even like the thing when you like get drunk and you like can understand more of a different language and that sort of thing. The more drunk I got, the worse I
The
got at
worst.
understanding.
Absolutely.
Because it's just it's English, but you can't. It's so there's so much different. It's amazing, really. So no, I don't know what a Bobby
Okay.
Dazzler is.
So
Do you
no
know
one's
what
going to
that is?
call you a gadgie because that's an old man. And a radgie is a particularly aggressive person, which I also don't think anybody would call you.
Okay, yeah, I probably wouldn't hear that. Yeah.
But a Bobby Dazzler is something or someone excellent. For
Ooh,
example, it's like saying they're a real diamond. So I think you should try to use that in a sentence at some point. Call someone a Bobby Dazzler and try to get called that
yeah,
insult.
no, I'm gonna go fishing for that. And just dazzle at as many times as I can and just see if people take the hint.
This one I did love, which is when someone says, way I man,
Wait,
way I.
I haven't really heard that. I mean, they
They
say
actually, Tony, I'm sure someone said it to you at the pub
yeah,
drunk
they
and you
probably
haven't
did.
understood
And
what
I
they're
was just
saying.
like smiling and nodding at them.
Also,
They
if you're
say
listening to this and I've said that wrong, too late. It's already done.
oh,
But
they say I a lot.
I,
Um,
I, way
I
I
am
man. Okay.
yeah.
And the final one I have for you is clamming. Do you know what clamming means?
I don't know
This is
clamming.
a PG-13 rated podcast, so I promise it's not
Oh
anything too
dear.
appropriate.
What is
It
clamming?
means it means very hungry.
Ah,
So did I teach you? I taught you something. I
you know,
think I taught
this
everybody
is
something.
I didn't think this was an educational podcast, but here we are
Yeah,
because we're lifelong learners. We can't help
we are
ourselves. And
lifelong learners.
you dug in deep for the Geordie slang, which is outstanding.
Sure did. You
I'm
did
sure
very well.
like
You did very well on that quiz. I actually really
hey,
enjoyed that.
thanks.
I had a similar experience when I first came to the UK. I'd only been abroad once or twice. It was summer after my freshman year of college. I was volunteering up in the Northeast, about 10 miles outside of Durham in a place called Stanley for the summer. And flew overnight, didn't sleep, got on the train from London, didn't sleep. And immediately I get in at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And they're like, right, we're going to the pub. And
Yes.
people were telling me all kinds of stories. And that's where I perfected the smile and nod, which has served me very well in the UK.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine like, I mean, maybe it wasn't as jarring a transition moving to Scotland, but there's totally different slang, totally different words, like all that stuff, like especially if you're talking to folks who are from those streets,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it is a different world, man. I love it.
It's been funny. I was telling you, I joined this choir, Keeping Up the Singing Life. Also, this is part of my continued what if experiences. And
Wait,
we're
did your choir have a jaunty name?
it's called the Bohemians.
That's jaunty enough. I
Pretty
like that.
jaunty. It's
Yeah.
pretty jaunty. And we are singing we're singing a song by the Proclaimers, famous Edinburgh duo, 500 Miles. Everybody knows it, the I Would Walk 500 Miles
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
And we're singing it, and the music director is like, don't be afraid to be proudly Scottish when you sing this song and use your Scottish accents to sing it. And so I tried to be like 100 miles, and people were like, that sounds nothing like you sound Spanish. You don't sound Scottish at
Why don't
all.
you wrap that up?
Don't do that. But guess what? We're also singing Oklahoma. So I have the upward hand there.
Oh my gosh.
I can do a
That is
yippee-i-o
tremendous.
better than almost any Scottish person.
Well done. I'm so excited that you're in that group. I thought
It's,
you were going to tell me that you guys were called the Bobby Dazzlers.
oh my
in the
God, that'd be
show.
amazing. I actually might
Yeah.
start something. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
going to change the name of this podcast completely. Called the Bobby Dazzler. There is loads of fun, but it is funny. And actually, I had this question for you. I just finished your book, which was so beautiful. And we shared a lot of similar experiences having memoirs coming out at the same time, not necessarily in life, was not a doctor at any point, was not a TV writer. I've never had blood spurting out on me on Grey's Anatomy and all of those great things that you've done. But I did sort of go through this period in my life. I had some epiphanies and I made some resolutions that I shared with everybody who's read my book at the end of the book. And so sometimes now that it's been, the book's been done for over a year, it's out in the world. But sometimes it's like a struggle of still trying to live the life that I promised everybody I was going to be living at the end of that book, without spoiling it for everybody, which we won't do. You also get to some resolutions at the end of your book. How are you feeling now, post publication, post having written it? I don't know actually when you finished the writing of it. Do you find it tricky to still try to live by those promises to yourself that you set out?
I think as far as, because I mean, both of our books are they're kind of coming of age books, right? And just kind of different experiences, different time frames in our life. But that's, I mean, how I very much related to your book. I was like, she's asking herself a lot of the questions I recognize, and as far as the where I end up at the end of the book, and kind of having kind of a new way of looking at my life and who I can be and what I can achieve. I think that I definitely feel that I've gone on to embody that over the years since the timeline of that book ended, because I end that book kind of at the end of my training in the year after, and it's been like 7 or 8 years since then. And so
Not since you finished the writing though, but since
no,
character Tony finished
the
the
character Tony finished his
plot.
journey in my book. Yeah. But I finished the writing of it last year.
Yeah.
And honestly, like the experiences since I finished residency, and the ways I've tried to kind of take myself to task to improve, myself and my life, helped me to write the book much better.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of things that I had to acknowledge, a lot of things I had to fight through and recognize, a lot of things I had to talk with my therapist about and really get to the bottom of, so that I could write about them from a more objective place as an author and inject emotion into them without feeling it myself, and
Yeah.
that not having my lack of resolution, paint, how I wrote it. And so, I'm so grateful for all these years where I've just kept pushing it. It hasn't just been me. I mean, it's been the people closest to me. I mean, I credit my wife, more than anybody with kind of just demanding more of me, demanding better of me. And then it helps me demand better of myself. So I think, as far as that that part of the journey goes, I've tried, and I know I continue to try, um, to be as good as I can manage, and keep pushing myself past kind of the limitations I kind of spent a lifetime
It's amazing.
building for myself.
The time that we spent the most time together, we were babies,
Yeah.
19, 20. But you always had this just very positive, open, kind of larger than life persona, I think. And so I learned some things about you that I didn't know in reading the book. I also had that experience with my book. A lot of people coming to me and saying, I didn't know you were feeling that way at this time, or that had happened.
Mhm.
What were you the most nervous about putting out there for people to read?
Well, it's funny. I wasn't really nervous about sharing kind of intimate details about my life.
Mm,
I That was a decision I made before I wrote it. I was like, all right, we're gonna get into it. And if I come out kind of looking like an asshole a lot of the time, then that's it, because I was. And so I wasn't worried about how I would come across, but
mm,
I was concerned with how some of the people I describe might come across. And
mm,
I was just like, I have to write about my experiences with them, from a place of honesty and caring, even though, these were a lot of the time they were relationships that didn't work out, or kind of were really toxic to both
yeah.
of us. And that's, relationships within my family, and romantic relationships I've had, and all that sort of stuff. And so, what I was thinking about was, how do I write this without trying to make anyone look bad? Like,
Right.
that's not my intention, and I
Right.
don't want that to be what comes across. And I want to make sure that I look just as grimy and dirty as they do. You know what I mean? I thought
Yeah.
that was like step one, but disguising folks adequately so that the average person wouldn't know who
Wouldn't
they were, and hoping I did that well enough.
yeah.
Um, and I was assured by my lawyers at the publishing house that I'd done enough to not get sued by anybody.
Phew!
But yeah, they were just like, you won't get sued, but you gotta be okay if like some folks are like kind of upset.
Has
And I
anybody
was
reached
like,
out to you since the book came out that was, like, in the book and maybe didn't know they were gonna be in it, or
yeah. Um, Actually, one person who didn't know they were in the book at all, who I haven't spoken to in years, reached out to me kind of the second week the book came out,
Mhm.
because she had seen that I had been posting about. She saw it in a bookstore and just flipped through, and wasn't expecting to see a story about her in there.
Right.
Like, had no idea that what actually ended up being like a really formative and difficult experience for her was actually informative and difficult for me as
Yeah.
well. She just assumed it was a blip on everyone's radar but hers. And so, we hadn't spoken in a very long time. And it's kind of a friendship I've always wished we'd still had. But she reached out and wrote me this really long, kind email.
That's
It was
nice.
just so wonderful. And there hadn't been a point since the book had come out where I'd really just felt gratitude for having, gone through this journey, so that I could get to this point where it reaches somebody, and they can assure me that the way I told that story, of course, is the way I experienced it, but the way
Mm,
I told that story was cathartic for them to see and validating for them to see, which was really wonderful. Um, so yeah, that was a really, really important moment for me.
That's beautiful. And you haven't gotten sued yet, so that's a win.
Yeah, not yet. No, I'm just, I'm just kind of kicking back, waiting for the call. But I think, I've heard, from a lot of people who are in the book and knew they always would be. And, it's, lots of really positive stuff from them. Um, having a lot of the book takes place in my residency training for ENT surgery in Detroit. And a lot of the folks who've gone through it with me have reached out. But none of my bosses, who I'm very hard on, have reached out at all. And they've known this book's been coming for years. But I'm very curious about what their thoughts
That's
are.
so funny. I'm working on a novel right now, and there's a character,
Ooh.
I'll say loosely, but very much based on a previous boss I had. And I said something to Carlos at some point. I was like, I wonder what so and so will think when they read about the book. And they were like, and Carlos said, "Oh, that's cute that you think that they're actually going to read anything that you wrote." So I think I'm safe.
That may be the case too on my end. We'll see how it
We'll see
shakes
what by
out.
the time this podcast comes out, let's see what's happened.
I know, right?
But the book is I Can't Save You. It is beautiful. Hearing Tony speak about it so eloquently is just a snippet of what you'll get as a reader. At the risk of reopening this discussion we had before we started recording about this kind of feeling after a book comes out and you promote it and then you're like, wait, what do I do now?
Yeah.
What's next for you, Tony?
Yeah, no, great question. So, like I said earlier, I am no longer a practicing surgeon. I left that life behind and then went on to become a television writer. And so, television writing, I just can't believe it's something I get to do. It's so wonderful, and I love telling stories in that way. But, currently, hopefully not by the time this podcast comes out, but currently the writers are all on strike, and we have been for about 2 months. So we are, fighting for just fair pay and all this stuff, and there's just ways to secure our jobs for the future. And I just love being in a union. I've never been in one before. It just like I'm real jazzed up
It is a
about
very
this.
British
But
thing also to be in a union. So
oh
that
yeah, they
definitely
love their
helps you fit right
unions and
in.
their protests and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna get down with that. But yeah, since we're not allowed to share our writing with anybody at the moment, I'm doing my best to stay busy and come up with brand new ideas and write those scripts. There's gonna hopefully be an adaptation of my book that I'm getting the chance to write for TV. So I'm working on that too. Who knows? That may die on the vine, or it may become something. So you just do your best and see where it goes. So just trying to stay motivated
Amazing.
right now.
Tony, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me, the Extra Shot. We really have been a lot of places today. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you. And please, everybody who's listening, pick up I Can't Save You if you haven't already read it. If you have, buy another copy. Why not?
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Tell your enemies. Tell
Yes,
anybody.
all of them.
Yeah, tell them
Just
all.
pick it up. And then y'all can follow me on the internet things. You can find Instagram.
What is it again? What's it called again?
You search my name on Instagram, Tony Chin-Quee, you'll find me there. And same
and
thing.
his amazing TikToks, dance videos, acapella singing. I'm just kidding. Do you have TikTok? I don't have
TikTok.
No TikTok.
That's one thing I have not been apparently but the book is being advertised on TikTok, and there's a lot of content on there that I recorded that I've never seen. So if you want to do a deep dive into your boy, TikTok could be a place.
Amazing. Well, send us any screenshots of Tony on TikTok. Don't even know how it works. Send us a talk, whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't know. We'll see. I need some 19-year-olds to show me how all this stuff works. But
Tony, you're the best. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. It's been such a blast.